Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back. Sorry we are late. I had some morning calls to get to that derailed my being here on time. Otherwise, everything was done and set up on time. But I got some calls, very important calls from my bosses that I needed to respond to. I could not keep them waiting. So do indulge me on that. In this beautiful morning's broadcast, it's a bright and sunny out here, the 6th of January 2026. I will be talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjær's interest in returning to Manchester United, even if it means to come on an interim capacity. For those of you that care to remember, the last time he came in as an interim, he ended up taking the job because he did tremendously well in that period of being an interim, having succeeded Jose Mario Felix Mourinho following his sacking, I think back around December 2018. That should be around the period of time. So he then took on the reins, guided the team through that COVID period, that infamous COVID period, and he did really, really well. But again, like all the other managers that came before him, eventually the ship went out of his hand and started to sort of sail in a totally different direction as opposed to where he would love to see it. And it ended up with him being shown the exit, and that's how he left the club. And then, of course, they brought in Ralph Rangnick, of course, Michael Carrick, taking on the reins just for a very short stint. And then Ralph Rangnick took over the reins at the team, and he guided them until the end of the season before, Ole Gunnar Solskjær came in. So we'll be talking about that this beautiful morning. Among other things, of course, the Premier League does return for match day 21 starting today. We'll be talking about that as well. We'll be looking at what fixtures will be coming for match day 21. We'll be looking at what the implications will be. We'll be talking about Arsenal, who are set to be, I think, possibly the first team to play 4 away games in 4 different competitions. That's in the Premier League, in the EFL Cup, in the FA Cup, and in the UEFA Champions League, because that's their next run of fixtures in as far as things go today. But I hope you are doing well. Yesterday, we did do a video about the sacking of Ruben Amorim and tried to digest that in a video. So go over to the channel and check it out. For those of you that have already watched it, thank you so much. I'm really, really interested in your feedback. So when you watch the video, please leave me a comment down in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are on Ruben Amorim being sacked and what should be next for Manchester United. Do you think it was the right timing? Do you think it was the right decision? All those questions, answer all those questions down in the comment section. To all our new subscribers, I thank you so much for making it a point to join the Football Tribe UG community. It's always a pleasure to have you guys around. Thank you so much for the continued love and support. So this beautiful morning, that's what we'll be discussing for the Norwegian, international. I think it does hold legendary status in the books of Manchester United. Manchester United fans, if any, on the forum, should be letting us know whether they think that Ole Gunnar Solskjær is of legendary status in their own history. I know oftentimes when it comes to the topic of legendary status at a club, usually it's a very, very subjective decision. It's a very, very subjective topic. Some may agree, some may disagree, but whatever your school of thoughts will be, do leave that down in the comment section. So, and then we'll also get to discuss, of course, the Africa Cup of Nations. Today we have the final games of the round of 16 when Algeria take on DRC Congo in the round of 16. And then the other fixture will be between Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso. Yesterday we did witness Egypt get through to the quarter finals at the expense of Benin, who they managed to beat by 3-1 after extra time. And then Nigeria did not need extra time, but they thrashed Mozambique by 4-0 in a very, very convincing, very emphatic, very beautiful result. I think they were sending a message that last time out we did reach the finals and we got beat at the finals, but this time around we are back even stronger to win it. So I will be looking at that as well. Give me your thoughts. What are your predictions for the AFCON? Who do you think is going to win it? Do you still contend Morocco are going to win it? I do contend Morocco stand to win it because they are one of the favorites, but they have a quarterfinal hurdle to overcome when they take on Cameroon. That's a very, very difficult ask for Morocco against the five-time champions in the indomitable lands. They had to overcome Tanzania, who they only beat by a goal to nil. That goal by Brahim Diaz that helped them advance. By Brahim Diaz that turned out to be the match winner for them, So very, very interesting there. So, anyways, AFCON. So Egypt beat Benin by 3-1. Like I said, it was after extra time because Mawani Atai did score in the 69th minute to give Egypt the lead, while Jodel Dosso scored in the 83rd minute, 7 minutes from the 90th minute mark to restore parity for Benin, and eventually the game got sent into extra time. Mauri Kola, how are you? Good morning. For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Robert Kesakos and I'm streaming live from Kampala, Uganda. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning, 9 minutes past the hour of 10 a.m. East African time. Do me the absolute honor and favor and like the broadcast, but also please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here and help support our growth on this forum. It's a football forum, so I do welcome all manners of football discussions. So, yes, Yasser Ibrahim in the 97th minute, that's in extra time, is scored to make it 2-1 for Egypt, while Mohamed Salah in the 4th minute of added time, of extra time, scored what was the last nail, hammered the last nail in his coffin to send them packing at the round of 16. The most that's Egypt are the most successful country in as far as the Africa Cup of Nations is concerned, having won it on 7 different occasions. But the last time they won it was back in 2010. Ever since 2010, they've not won the competition because in 2012 Zambia won it, in 2013 Nigeria won it, in 2015 Ivory Coast won it, in 2017 Cameroon won it, in 2019 Algeria won it, in 2021 Senegal won it, and in 2023 Ivory Coast won it. So that's been the trajectory or the trend of things. Joan, hi Joan, good to have you on the broadcast. Sonic, good morning, how are you? Good to have you on the broadcast. Thank you so much for being a part of the discussion. So that was the result. And then in in Nigeria, on the other side, Nigeria, like I said, beat up against Mozambique by 4-0. Ademola Lookman opening his, he opened the scoring, I think, with his second or third goal of the tournament in the 20th minute, while Victor Osimhen scored a brace there. I mean, I love Victor Osimhen's hunger and passion. That never give up aptitude. He's a fighter. I like how he fights all throughout the game. Even when he gets withdrawn in the 80th minute, he will show a certain level of disappointment. And should it come when he's not squad in the game, oh my, you may think he had been thrown in for 5 minutes and then suddenly got withdrawn. But he has that passion for the game overall, because this doesn't just happen with his country. It also happens at club level. I've seen him at least do that, particularly when he was still during his days at Napoli. So he scored a brace in the 25th minute and in the 47th minute, while Ako Adams was the other goal scorer for the Super Eagles, who have won this competition on 3 different occasions. So on 3 different occasions, the Super Eagles have won it. They are looking to win it for the first time, like I said, since 2013, when they beat up against Burkina Faso in the finals by a goal to nil. You remember that edition was hosted in South Africa. That's where that edition was hosted. That was 3 years after South Africa had hosted the FIFA World Cup. For those of you that remember FIFA World Cup 2010, that was won by Spain, who beat up against Netherlands in the final by a goal to nil. That goal scored by Iniesta with assist Francesc Sola Fabregas providing the assist. We had there a cohort, I think, of finals, 2 finals that ended in a 1-0 victory, because the subsequent World Cup final that was won by Germany, who beat up against Argentina in Brazil. They won that one by a goal to nil. That goal scored by Mario Götze. So That's a bit the trend of things in recent times. Good morning to you, Pedri. Good to have you on the broadcast. How are you doing, my brother? I hope you're okay. Who do you fancy will win the Africa Cup of Nations? I finally managed to make it in the morning. Yeah, you finally managed to make it because we are 1 hour late. I had some morning calls to get to that sort of extended our start period to the broadcast. But it's always a pleasure to have you around for our discussions. So do let me know, what are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to win the Africa Cup of Nations? Now that we are left with only 2 games to determine who will be in the other quarterfinal. Who do you think stands the chance to win this edition of the Africa Cup of Nations? Who do you think that's going to be? But I mean, for Nigeria's victory against Mozambique, I really thought that was a show of intent. They even had a goal ruled out for offside. That goal scored by Victor Osimhen very early in the game was ruled out for offside, so it did not stand. But because it was meant to be, they eventually ran away with it. Alex Iwobi came close, forcing the goalkeeper, I think, on 2 different occasions into a brilliant save. The first coming in around the 6th minute with his brilliant attempt from outside the area. So Nigeria were on top of affairs. They had, I think, about 9 shots on target. Mozambique did not have any shot on target. They only had 2 shots on goal. Nigeria had a total of 21 shots on goal. So that clearly tells you the kind of dominancy Nigeria enjoyed in that game. But yeah, then currently I believe that Senegal is the most convincing. That's Pedri saying that the 2021 champions who beat up against Egypt in the finals. Of course, it was penalties that proceeded. Was it what? A goalless draw in normal time? That will be, will be the eventual champions. He thinks they've done well enough to convince him that they are capable of going far in this tournament to go ahead and win the competition. Remember, 2021 was hosted in Cameroon, so it was won by Senegal 4-2 on post-match penalties that proceeded a goalless draw in normal time. So that's what's happening, or what you should expect. I still contend that Morocco, even though they had to drag their way through the round of 16 to the quarterfinals, I still contend that they stand a chance, given that they're hosts. But like I said, it's going to be a tall order to ask of them when they come up against Cameroon at the quarterfinals, because that is what is going to happen. But today, Algeria are up against DRC Congo in the early kickoff, while Ivory Coast will take on Burkina Faso at 10 p.m. East African time for that game. So, apologies from last night. Egypt will not be facing Nigeria. So, yeah, but already for the quarterfinals, it's Mali up against Senegal. I mean, I do fancy Senegal really. Mali are a very strong team. They're fighters, but I think Senegal may prove a little just too strong. Cameroon up against Morocco. So today we are waiting to determine who will take on Nigeria and who will take on Egypt in the other 2 quarterfinal games. Okay, away from that, quickly to Manchester United. We know that they part ways with Ruben Amorim yesterday. He was sent packing. The 40-year-old Portuguese gaffer was shown the exit, and Darren Fletcher Salongo. Salongo means a father of twins here in Uganda, in case you're wondering why I'm using the term. But that's what it means. So Darren Fletcher Salongo will be in charge over their game against Burnley, because Ruben Amorim has been shown the exit. We digested a lot of that in last night's broadcast, so we will not get into the in-depth of it to repeat ourselves. But for those of you that want our thoughts about the sacking of Ruben Amorim, you can go over to the Football Tribe UG channel. Under the video section, there is an 18 minutes video discussing entirely that. And then also, last night's broadcast, Monday night, the 5th of January, the live broadcast that we did. Let me see what the headline was. I think the headline was, were Manchester United right to sack Ruben Amorim? We did digest that. So you can go and watch those respective broadcasts. You'll find all our thoughts in regards to the sacking of Ruben Amorim, and you'll share your thoughts with us. So according to reports coming in from last night, Ole Gunnar Solskjær, former Manchester United manager, has shown interest in taking the Manchester United job as a caretaker. We know he's out of work ever since he part ways with Besiktas there in Turkey. So regardless of the contract length, he is interested in taking the job. But Manchester United, I believe that they will be taking their time to assess candidates for the job. For the moment, Darren Fletcher is the interim manager this week. Again, things can change pretty fast. You never know. Maybe within the next 48 hours, we may have had a new manager named for Manchester United, at least on an interim basis. I don't know, but I want to believe that Ruud van Nistelrooy would be interested in the role. I mean, he worked with this team before the appointment or prior to the appointment of Ruben Amorim. I think he would, really be interested in taking on the role. Then the other question will be who else would they be interested in? Who else would be interested in the job? In terms of Manchester United's job interest, I do not think that they can be short of candidates that will be interested in the role. The question then becomes, who is the right man for the job? Because again, all season we've been talking about Oliver Glasner. Apparently, is interested in the role. There've been links with Bournemouth's Andoni Iraola. I do not think his results with Bournemouth over the last 2 months, particularly in the month of November and December, have done him any favors. Because I think Bournemouth have not won a game of football in the last 11 games. So maybe their doubts now raised over him, even though they had brightly started the season. So that's all there. In terms of elite managers who you could look to, we know that Xavi has been, learning English, studying the Premier League, according to Fabrizio Romano, because he will be interested in taking on a Premier League role. And Manchester United, even though they are not in Europe, he will be open to taking on the role. My question about Xavi is not about his tactical prowess. It will be whether whatever system he conjures up in his mind would be suitable to this Manchester United side. There's nothing to suggest that it is not capable. But we know, having come through the ranks at Barcelona, having that Barcelona DNA, I think you and I, without even taking the period of an eyes blink, we can tell the kind of football he would want to play if he took on the role at Manchester United. That entertaining football, that passing football, but Manchester United built for that. I remember making an argument at one point, and it's a discussion we went on to have quite extensively, perhaps not on this forum, with somebody who said Manchester United have players that are suited to a system of counter-attacking football, and yet you had the manager in Ruben Amorim who was trying to get them to play a different way, to play, a dominant way. Manchester United's dominance has never been in possessing the ball and using it for intricate things. They have always been a direct team. They have always been a counter-attacking team. Now, if you want to shift from that DNA, then one, you will need time. But in needing that time, your bosses must be willing to accord you that time. And every iteration of managers that we go through, whether at Manchester United or elsewhere, we end up with the same destination. We end up with the destination of Mikel Arteta. We look at the example of Arsenal, how they gave Mikel Arteta time to get things done, to teach boys his way. Now, the advantage maybe you would say about Mikel Arteta that when he walks into Arsenal, he already knew how they play, which wasn't so different from the way he wanted them to play. They've always been the team that wants to be dominant with the ball. They're always a team that wants to play fancy football, tic-tac kind of football that scores lots of goals. He wanted that. Of course, he had changes because he had seen the club deteriorate in the later stages or the later years of Arsene Wenger and subsequently Unai Emery when he came in 2017. Of course, took them through the 2017-20. when he came in 2018, took them through the 2018-2019 season and the subsequent season until halfway when he got sacked. Christian Hernandez says, what? I don't know what you mean by what, but we're talking about football, in case you're wondering. Thank you for being part of the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. So, every time a manager has been sacked at Chelsea, every time a manager has been sacked at Manchester United, and elsewhere, including Tottenham Hotspurs in recent times, particularly with Jose Mourinho, with Antonio Conte, with Ange Postecoglou. Of course, we know Roy Mason being in there as an interim, and elsewhere. Always, when we look around for benchmarks in terms of building a project, the quickest example we've run to has been Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, because for some reason, Arsenal bosses stuck with Arteta. They had the faith in him. Now, he's not yet won major honors, but in terms of building a formidable team, we cannot question those results there. Then the other example we can look to is Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. You remember when it comes in October 2015, after the sacking of Brendan Rodgers, you remember that time, he was given time to build. Yes, he had some quick successes in taking the team, for example, to the finals of the finals of the UEFA Europa League. I think they got beat by Sevilla by 3-0 in that final. But Jurgen Klopp was given time to build that team, to bring in the likes of Sadio Mane, to bring in the likes of Firmino, to bring in Mo Salah, to bring in Virgil van Dijk, to bring in Arsene Ramsey-Specker, to prop up the Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson, to bring in Gini Wijnaldum, to bring in Fabinho, to bring in Jordan Henderson was there, Divock Origi, getting rid of the likes of Christian Benteke, among others, to bring in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I don't know if he's the one who brought in James Milner, but I mean, he built that team. He built that team. And eventually the team got success because they won the UEFA Champions League in 2019, they won the Premier League title in 2020, and they won the FA Cup, they won 2, I think, EFL Cups, possibly then they won the UEFA Super Cup, and was it the FIFA Club World Cup also? Now, fast forward, that project climaxes and he realizes it is one it all, and he started on a rebuild project, which he did not see throughout, but he started that rebuild project, bringing in the likes of Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, Ryan Gravenberch, Dominic Szoboszlai. Those were all his signings. So bringing in the likes of Wataru Endo. So you look at that and think to yourself that he had started something. And it is that project that he had embarked on rebuilding that, what's his name? Anna Slot used to win Liverpool the Premier League title last season. So when you look around in terms of project building, I think you're not shy of examples where teams like Manchester United, teams like Chelsea, teams like Tottenham Hotspurs can draw their benchmarks on to say, it's going to take time, money is going to be an issue, but we will stick to this. I do not want to make reference to the Manchester City project because Manchester City seem to have a plethora of resources that not all teams may have access to in terms of fast building. And that's why when Pep Guardiola walks in, it took him only one season to go trophyless, and then he started dominating the Premier League there onwards. Mr. Tribe, what are you talking about? You've lost me. Ha ha ha. Yes, I was talking about Manchester United, what they need. Their project building, because they seem to, it's been a start-stop kind of a feeling for them. Every time they brought in a manager, at the first sight of stumbling, they've sacked that manager, and they've gone back to ground zero and trying to rebuild again. You ask Algeria or DRC Congo, I do fancy DRC Congo. I know Algeria is a very, very strong team, and I love them, those Riyad Mahrez. But for me, I think DRC Congo will win. I anticipate it to be a very difficult game. I anticipate it to be a game that doesn't have so many goals. But I expect, do you see how Mali managed to grind it out against Tunisia? That's the kind of a game I expect between DRC Congo and Algeria. And then eventually DRC Congo to advance to the semifinals. They are my dark horses of the tournament. I've said this right from the onset, so I'll stick with them. So that's my school of thought. Pedri says, I think Algeria will win by 2-0. They are very, very capable. They are very, very capable. I mean, we're talking about a team who in 2019 were champions of Africa. So not too far off. Not too far off. So I wouldn't disagree with you on your prediction. Like I said, about DRC Congo, I have a bit of blind objectivity on them because they are under the charges of Sebastian Desabre, who guided the Uganda Cranes through the 2019 edition of the Africa Cup of Nations, for which we managed to advance out of the group stages and went to the round of 16 before losing to Senegal by 0-0. So I'm rooting for him personally, Sebastian Desabre, to do really, really well in the competition. But yeah, Algeria beat up against Senegal in the finals of 2019 to win it, that tournament that was hosted in Egypt. So yeah, at least you can say Uganda got knocked out by the eventual losing finalists there. So, so to the context of Manchester United, whatever their decision will be now and eventually then, whichever the manager they get, when you look around, I do not see a lot of experienced managers that are available for the taking to take on the Manchester United job. In an ideal world, you'd say, let's look for an experienced manager that can give us a bit of experience in one, getting some quick results while building at the same time. But when you look around the block, the question is who is capable, who is available, Are you going to go to AC Milan and pull out Maximiliano Allegri, who was not managed anywhere outside Italy? And that's not to say that he cannot manage outside Italy. But the question is he the one you're going to look to? Does he fit the mold of the person that you want? Confirmed, the winner of Algeria versus DRC Congo will play Nigeria. Indeed, yes, they will play Nigeria. Thank you for that submission, Pedri. So will be, when you look at those quarterfinal fixtures, what they promise to be, it's going to be a very, very entertaining phase of the tournament. It's going to be a very, very entertaining phase. Confirmed, the winner of the Cote d'Ivoire Burkina Faso will play Egypt. True. And who do you fancy will go through? I think Ivory Coast stand a chance. I think Ivory Coast stand a chance against Burkina Faso. So, but remember, Burkina Faso also are not an easy team. They were the losing finalists in 2013. They lost by 0-0 against Nigeria. So, but back to the topic of Manchester United. So, are you going to go and persuade Antonio Conte out of Napoli? I've always said this about Antonio Conte. If you want quick success, he's the kind of manager that you look to for quick success. If you want a long-term project, he is not your kind of guy. He's not the guy that sticks around, for a long time. He's the kind of guy who, after winning, for some reason, there begins to come up murmurings within the dressing room. There begins to come, some bit of fighting between him and his bosses, wherever he's been. So the only place he's been for longer than 2 years, possibly, has been at Juventus. So he's that kind of manager. Would you look to go and pull him out of Napoli to take on the reins as full-time manager at Manchester United? Do you go and tempt Diego Simeone to say, you've had it well enough here, maybe it's now time to try out a new challenge, a new project? Come to Manchester United. Is he the manager you look to? Zinedine Zidane seems to be waiting for that France national team job after the breakaway of Didier Deschamps. Do you wait for Thomas Tuchel to finish the England duty at the World Cup and say, come and take over? Or do you try and tempt him away the way Real Madrid did with Julian Lopetegui before the 2018 World Cup when he was in charge of Spain? What direction do you take if you're Manchester United? Do you look to bring back Ole Gunnar Solskjær on full-time basis? Do you look to bring in Ralf Rangnick, to say, come, you'll have it your way and help us build a team? He's capable of that. Do you go to Jurgen Klopp? He's never going to come to Manchester United, having been at Liverpool. Are you going to, where do you go for that experienced manager? Are you going to go to Al Hilal and say, Simone Inzaghi, please come and manage in the Premier League? The question is, what manager of ample experience are you going to look to? So there's so many questions to that effect. But so then the Oliver Glasseners of this world, who is arguably been hammering for that job, according to multiple reports, ever since the start of the season, every time rumors came up that Ruben Amorim could be sacked, you could never read 2 paragraphs or beyond 1 paragraph for next potential candidates and skip the name of Oliver Glasner, Andoni Raiola, Eddie Howe, who are constantly being floated around. And then the sudden rumor that apparently Sir Jim Ratcliffe would prefer Gary Southgate. Is he cut out for club football? Would he manage a team like Manchester United? Because, like I keep saying, managing a small team is one thing. Managing a club like Manchester United is an entirely different thing. Okay, let's look at some of your continued comments about the Africa Cup of Nations. Pedri says Cote d'Ivoire will go through and will reach the semi-finals to Senegal to go to the final. You look like Michael Tyson. That is relax. Boy, relax. Thank you so much for that. I don't think I look like Mike Tyson. Anyway, Algeria will beat both DRC Congo and Nigeria and will play Morocco in the semi-final. Okay, that's Pedri's prediction. Let's hope it comes out that way. Boy Relax says Ibrahim Traore should play for Burkina Faso. Latido. The case of Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso players is that it's the way you've had over the years when you had Brazil produce a lot of talent, that so many good players were not getting into the national team. So they decided to end up playing elsewhere. If Jorginho would have loved, he would have played for the Brazilian national team, but he ended up playing for Italy. He's just one of the many that have failed to get an opportunity. We've seen it with the England national team. The likes of Eddie Nketiah, the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, the likes of Wilfred Zaha waited for that opportunity to play for the England national team, and it seemed never to come. And you have Wilfred Zaha playing for Ivory Coast. You've had, Eddie Nketiah and the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, that they could be pitched to play for Ghana, and all those kinds of things. So look at Antoine Semenyo. He plays for Ghana, but he was born in England. So those kinds of things do happen. So when you allude to that, support Ibrahim Traore, free Africa from colonialism. For you, you're talking about Ibrahim Traore, the leader of Burkina Faso. Okay, if that's your say, I have no quorums. I've not followed him that much. I do not know what's happening, particularly in the politics or the everyday affairs of Burkina Faso to pass judgment on him. But yeah, he is the leader at the moment. So Manchester United will be waiting for what direction they take in as far as their project is concerned. But that's 10 managers that they've let go of, both as permanent and interim basis so far. Pedri, what are your thoughts about Joao Cancelo? Because it's a here we go from Fabrizio Romano that a deal is in place for a loan until June. Exclusive story confirmed, as Barcelona will pay 4 million euros as loan coverage to Al Hilal, as revealed, despite Inter having a deal in place with Al Hilal. Joao Cancelo only wanted Barcelona. We know he's played there before while on loan from Manchester City. So it looks like he's back where his heart belongs when it comes to Spanish football. Joao Cancelo. That's in as far as transfers are concerned. Speaking of transfers, according to Sami Mokbel of the BBC Sport, Manchester City are interested in signing Crystal Palace's McKay amidst interest from Bayern Munich as well as Liverpool. If you're McKay, where do you play your football next? If I'm McKay, I'll go to Bayern Munich. Subscribed, done, follow. Thank you so much, boy, relax. Thank you so much for your kindness, for your love and support. So if I'm McKay, I'm going to go and challenge myself in the German Bundesliga. It may not be the strongest of leagues, but if there's anything that Bayern Munich guarantees, is pieces of silverware. 2, in that backline of Kim Min-jae, of Dayot Upamecano, you're bound to get space in there. There's definitely a slot there. And we know that Vincent Company signed Michael Olise from Crystal Palace, and look, he's been balling all throughout at Bayern Munich. So you can take a bet on yourself to go there. If our, and guess what? He's allowed to have a pre-agreement with Bayern Munich to join them even in the summer if Crystal Palace are reluctant to let him go. But yeah, Manchester City, due to injuries to Josko Gvardiol, who apparently fractured his tibia in the right leg, and then injuries to Ruben Dias, and yet we know John Stones is also been out through injury. Nathan Ake has been in and out of the team through injury. So that leaves them with Kushanov. So that means they need somebody to help defensively. They need a defensive option. And let's not forget, the likes of John Stones are aging out. The likes of Nathan Ake will soon be exiting the club. So even at Manchester City, he can fancy himself that he will go straight into that team and play football. However, when all the defenders are fully fit, Pep Guardiola will always tinker with his team, and you never know. So there's that interest as well. Then, according to Fabrizio Romano, Liam Rafinha is on the verge of being appointed as the new Chelsea head coach. This week, as confirmed, positive meetings in the last 24 hours in London with Chelsea hierarchy and agreement at final stages. RC Strasbourg to name a new head coach as the next step. Remember, Strasbourg, the French Ligue 1 side, is a sister club to Chelsea because they are under the same ownership of Blue Co. And meanwhile, at AC Roma, Brian Christie and Gianluigi Mancini will soon sign new long-term deals at AC Roma, so do not miss out on that. Meanwhile, we are also waiting for Manchester City to wrap up the deal for Anton Semenyo from AFC Bournemouth. We are waiting for that to happen, Meanwhile, West Ham have sent an official bid to Al Nassr for Brazilian goalkeeper Bento. Now, the signings that West Ham are making, are they for the team by a sporting director, or are they for the manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, who, according to multiple reports, if he doesn't win the game against Nottingham Forest, he could be shown the exit? So anyways, we'll leave that at that and quickly give you what's to come on match day 21 of the Premier League. Action does kick off today at 11 p.m. when West Ham take on Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest are 17th on the Premier League log, 4 points clear of relegation, with West Ham occupying the 18th place with 14 points. So it's more of a relegation derby. If West Ham win this game, they move within a point behind Nottingham Forest. If Nottingham Forest win the game, they move 7 points ahead of West Ham. So the stakes are high. A draw is an undesirable result for either team. A loss is the worst possible result for either team because Nottingham Forest have lost the last 4 consecutive games in as far as the Premier League is concerned. That's under Sean Dyche. So that means he himself is under his own form of pressure. Nottingham Forest lost to Aston Villa by 3-1. They got beat by Everton by 2-0. They got beat by Manchester City by 2-1. And then got beat by Fulham by 1-0. West Ham, on the other hand, have not won a single game in the last 5. They've only managed a 2-2 draw against Brighton, lost to Aston Villa by 3-2, to Manchester City by 3-0, to Fulham by 0-0, and to Wolverhampton Wanderers by 3-0. Last weekend, they got hammered by arguably the worst team in the Premier League. Now, these two sides met in August, and West Ham beat up against Nottingham Forest by 3-0. At the time, Nuno Espirito Santo was still in charge of Nottingham Forest. Last season, but one, Nottingham Forest beat up against West Ham, home and away. And the season before that, they had won their respective fixtures at home by 2-0 for Nottingham Forest and by 3-2 for West Ham United. It's always hard to predict games among poor teams. teams that are not delivering the results. On paper, I'd say Nottingham Forest have the stronger team. They have the better team. But Shondage is yet to make the desired results out of them. They've had some brilliant results, including beating up against Tottenham Hotspur by 3-0, thumping Liverpool by a similar scoreline. So you ought to credit him for that. But we'll have to wait and see how things go in that respect, in that regard. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how things go there. But to give you my prediction, I think it could end in a 1-1 draw. That's my prediction for West Ham against Nottingham Forest. But just know the pressure is going to be quite high. Then, of course, we'll get to preview some of these other games tomorrow morning, or perhaps even in the night. But tomorrow, that's Wednesday at 10:30 p.m., we'll have as many as 6 games. Yes, you had that right. At 10:30 tomorrow, we'll have as many as 6 games. When Bournemouth entertain Tottenham Hotspur at the Vitality Stadium, Sunderland play away to the G-Tech Stadium against Brentford, Crystal Palace will be at Selhurst Park against Aston Villa, Everton will take on Wolverhampton Wanderers, while Fulham will be up against Chelsea at Craven Cottage. Manchester City will take on Brighton and Hove Albion. Man City against Brighton and Hove Albion should be a must-watch, as should be Chelsea against Fulham. Beautiful games to watch. Now, and at 11:15 p.m. East African time, Burnley will be at home against Manchester United, and Newcastle will be at home against Leeds United. So I'll give you my predictions tomorrow. We'll go through some of the previews of those games tomorrow. We know Brighton beat up against Manchester City in the first one by 2-1. So we'll be looking at that to see what they will be able to conjure up. And then the final game of match day 21 will come on Thursday, the 8th of Jan, when Arsenal take on Liverpool. So that should be your expectation. Otherwise, guys, it's been 42 minutes of the broadcast. Allow me to wrap it up here and run off to other duties. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure having you, Boy Relax. Thank you so much, Pedri, for having been a part of today's broadcast. Thank you so much, Sonic. Thank you so much, Joan. Thank you so much, Mauricola, for having been part of today morning's engagement. I wish you the best of the rest of time. Stay blessed and bye-bye for now.